Thanks for joining us on the Pivotme Live today. For those that are watching now or watching later, as you probably know, we're doing a modified version of the podcast. So typically we stream on all our usual podcast places, the Spotify's and the wherever you get your podcast, we live there. But in this time of COVID-19, we've done something a little bit different, right? So we wanted to bring the information fast. We wanted to make it very relevant for the time and the season that you business owners and just listeners in general, the season that you're in right now. And we'll introduce our guest here in just a second, but we were just talking offline that we want the conversations to be real, that we purposefully don't want crafted answers. These are people that run businesses that could give a very well curated response, but that's really not what we're looking for right now. What we're looking for is humans talking to humans about, hey, how are you guys navigating it? What does it look like in your business? What does it look like in the town or the country that you're living in? And how are you getting through this? How are you leading your team through it? How are you leading your family through it? Just as a way to share resources, to share insight. There's a lot of places out there where we can find a lot of negative information, and there are some challenging things happening right now. But let Pivotme Live be a place where you can find some hope, where you can find some things that are going right, some opportunities. The challenges are real, and we'll discuss them openly. But also, what can we do about those challenges? So that's why we're here today. As I mentioned yesterday, we have scaled back our interview schedule to Wednesdays and Thursdays at Pacific time. Again, a variety of business leaders from a variety of different industries. But that way, having that pared down schedule to Wednesday and Thursday allows us to better repurpose this content, like really get the information out there. There's some really good information that's been shared. And we realized we need to do a better job at leveraging that. We need to do a better job at communicating that to you so that you've got actionable steps or you've got insight that you can immediately execute on. So again, Wednesday and Thursday starting next week. But for today, let's get into our call today. So I'm super excited about our call today. Rach Negus, thank you first for waking up in the middle of the night to speak to us. Rach calls out of New Zealand. She's the CEO of Eco, a women clothing and accessory retail business out of Northland, New Zealand, right? I know you got a few different locations, but
that's pretty much it. Yeah.
That's pretty much it. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. And Eco imports amazing prints and stock from Italy, which we're very interested to hear about, as well as Thailand and Bali. We'll put her link in there so you can find out more at Eco, that's eko.org.nz. Thank you so much for joining us today, Rach.
Oh, thanks, April. It's nice to be here. Nice to see you again. I haven't seen you for ages.
I know. I've missed your face. I missed your face. I missed your voice. I'm so excited we're here. And we started to do an update before we went live, and I'm like, Rach, we can't do this. We got to wait until we're live because I have 1,000 questions about what's going on right now, though I'll have to keep it down to 10 or less. So tell us, Rach, about who you are, what you do, and who you do it for.
Oh, yes, but who I do it for, I do it not just for me, I do it for my family because it's we're in the retail industry, as you just said. Sure. And it's one of my main goals that I set, and I've just discussed this all with my staff at the moment, was to employ people in rural New Zealand, because I quit my job as a CFO and couldn't find work, and it's in rural New Zealand it's really difficult to get work.
Sure.
So I guess I do it for not just for myself, my family, but I also do it for so that other people can be employed. And I've got this passion behind it all that I want to help out people in particularly third world countries.
Yeah, that's amazing. So that's the why behind your business.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
yes,
no, that's perfect. That's and just being connected to that why of, hey, would you say, since you shared that story, that experience after you were a CFO and then that gap of, okay, where am I going from here? Is it that experience that was probably a low point in your life, I would imagine, is that kind of what drives you to, and now I want to help other people not go through that period, that they have gainful employment during that time?
Partly that that came from that. I guess I guess that I think I'm a big believer that business comes from the soul, and if you're not doing it from the right place in the first place, and I think COVID is actually showing us how so many people do have, it does come from the heart and from the soul. So yeah, I think that's a trait most people already have.
Yeah.
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 It's just unleashing it at the moment.
Yeah. So you have a retail business. So talk to us about that. So you have store locations. Do you have physical locations? Are people in there? Do you have remote staff? What does kind of the business mechanics look like?
Okay, so we've got 4 shops now. We 4 brick and mortar shops. We have an online store. Our online store's never quite made it there to be standalone. So we're still working on that theory. And also all of our staff basically work in the shops, and then we've got the running of the social media and the website behind all of that. But at the moment we're all in lockdown here, so none of us are at work.
No shops are open.
No shops are open. Nothing's, only the essential services.
Okay. And how long has that been the case in New Zealand? Or I don't know if you do it by country or by region. In the US, it's by like states, but
yeah, it's the whole country. We've been in lockdown for, I think we're up to day 16 or 17, and which is obviously very interesting. So there's only 2 staff that are working other than me, and and they're just doing tiny little bits here and there when I ask them a question, basically. Yeah. So.
Okay. So only 2 staff. Now, how you get a lot of your material from places that have been extremely hard hit. How are you guys navigating that? And it's okay to say, I don't know. We have the whiteboard out. We're trying to figure it out right now.
Well, it's quite funny because I think we've all thought that we were going to be on holiday for 4 weeks, but it hasn't been like that at all, because I've been seriously, literally trying to figure out what we're going to do about that. So I originally bought the first shop, and I've set up the other 3 since then. And the person that I bought the shop off is from Italy and lives not too far away from where we go and buy our stock. We're due to go there at the end of May. And obviously that's not going to happen.
Sure.
We basically, only New Zealanders are allowed across our borders at the moment. So if I left, I don't even know if I could leave at the moment. So anyway, I could potentially ask him to help me out and go and buy some stock, but that's all dependent upon whether Italy opens up at all, because my pick is it's probably not going to be open for quite a while. So we are trying, like I have spent the last 2 weeks trying to figure out where I can get the stock from. And it's not just as simple as that, because you've got to get samples, you've got to get patterns to them, designs to them, and it's I don't have that many contacts that I can draw on, but I have got some good ones, so
sure.
I'm trying.
Sure. And I, we just mentioned this briefly before we went live, is that one of our earlier interviews, I think it was about a week ago, we interviewed Babajide of Makers Valley, and he connects. He's in Naples, Italy right now, and he has several manufacturers in Italy that he works closely with. So we'll definitely be connecting you with Babajide, and hopefully that may be the purpose of this entire interview right there, is just one more. First, he's just a fantastic person and running a fantastic business. But the one thing that he said is, we keep communicating, hey, we're teed up, we're ready to start again. We just have to get the go ahead. One of the sort of the resounding messages in his interview was, keep communicating, keep letting people know you're there and we're ready to go. As soon as, we want to do the socially responsible thing, but as soon as the restrictions are lifted, we're going to jump right in and we're going to get out production as quick as we can. So hopefully we can get you guys connected and serve you in that way. So so typically I ask, what's the main hurdle that you're facing right now? But I feel like you just said it. Everything's closed. So have you pivoted your business at all? I know you have an online presence, and you were just mentioning that. Are you pivoting your efforts to, okay, well, since the shops aren't open, we're really leaning hard into selling through e-commerce? Is that?
So we're not allowed to, we can sell online, but we can't deliver it. So we can literally
Oh,
Yeah, so it's only essential services that can even be delivered at the moment. So um,
okay.
I actually just spoke with Tony yesterday about that and said, well, maybe we should ramp up now with the, do a promotion online so that they can buy now, but obviously at a discount, but obviously we won't be able to deliver it for at least another 2 weeks, because we're not even certain we'll be unlocked in 2 weeks, but it's looking that we probably will be.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think obviously being closed is a big hurdle because we've got zero revenue. But I think my biggest hurdle is Italy, is my stock, because Italy's like 60-70% of our business.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's a big deal.
Yeah. We were meeting with a handful of manufacturers 2 days ago, and they were manufacturing out of China. And they said,
Yeah.
our hurdle is where we manufactured is closed. So the hurdle is there's no material, which is it's a very real hurdle to overcome. So and again, this might be all, dynamic. You're figuring that out, but is it, okay, we need to find more connects in Italy? Is it considering sourcing from other locations? I know that you source from Thailand and Bali as well. Is it, let's look at our other suppliers and open up more channels that we can source material from? Is that also on the board?
Yeah, Thailand's fine because I can do the majority of that via email and WhatsApp and things like that. So I'm not so concerned about Thailand. We have been working with people in India, but it comes down to the sampling, and they're shut down as well at the moment. I think they reopen actually next week. And it's a different method of buying as well. So, there's a whole lot of numbers that go behind all of that. I did speak to a designer in New Zealand, and because we had a recent gift fair in New Zealand, and I spoke to her on Sunday about her designs, and she said she got them made out of China. And I said, oh, that's right, I forgot that you did it out of China. And I personally have nothing against what comes out of China.
Sure.
But I said to her, I think you'll find that that's going to be a barrier after we come out of lockdown. There have been quite a few comments that they don't want to touch anything that's come out of China.
Oh, that would be really
there's always
unfortunate.
been that. Yeah, there's always been that in the shop. It's made in China, and to be fair to China, like the quality and the technology that China have is incredible, and like they produce some amazing things.
Sure,
but
absolutely.
People are going to be anti a little, I think, in New Zealand.
That's going to be a very real barrier. It's a really unfortunate barrier. We've definitely seen, at least in commentary, and I think some actions as well, some xenophobia that's come out of this, which is terrible. A huge hurdle to face, and no doubt something that several people are going to try to address on the back end. And now I know that you were also very passionate about the places you were getting the material from. That, to your earlier point, you wanted to really, and from previous discussions you and I've had, that you really wanted to go in and be able to elevate the people that you're working together with, have this really good relationship, and help communities, whether that's local, rural New Zealand communities, give them shops and great places to work, or also the places that you were sourcing. I imagine that's still kind of at the forefront of, okay, I want to go in and maybe find a new place, but I want to make sure that it still aligns with your values. Because I know you guys have pretty strong company values too. And we lost Rach. So Rach will be back on with us here shortly. The internet has been going down a lot there, so she did give us a heads up. So we'll hang tight for a second and see if she joins us here. And if not, we'll just postpone the second half of this. It's interesting as she talks through her challenges, and the timing is great considering we did have someone that works in the clothing retail space in the manufacturing side on a week ago. So hopefully we can help Rach out in that. But watching real-time businesses pivot, real time, what are we going to do about this situation? We get the majority, I think she said 60 to 70% of our stock from Italy, and that's completely closed down. We have, I think she said 4 shops in New Zealand. Those are all closed down. She has an online presence, but it has, has not been wildly successful up until this point, or enjoyed the kind of success that she'd like it to have. it reminds us that this is a really good time to diversify. So with Rach, that might be diversifying in partnerships, right? Sourcing, open up other channels. It might be in how our go-to-market strategy. Typically we do shops, but now we have to do an online presence. So one thing I think that's definitely coming out of this experience is the need for diversification, and I want to clarify that diversification, not dilution, because it's very easy to get diluted as a business owner. It's very easy to see, us entrepreneurs, we see opportunity everywhere, and that can ultimately result in the dilution of efforts, right? If we're focusing on 30 things, well, then we've effectively focused on none. That's different than diversification. So if we've just got shops in some industries, that's unavoidable. If you've got, if you own a salon, I mean, you could have multiple salons, but if you own a salon, it's closed now. That's that, end of story. Now, can we get creative on the back end? Yeah, we might be able to, but some businesses are easier to diversify than others. But in a retail business like this, having an online presence is incredibly important. And for those of you that have an online presence, but have not dedicated a lot of resources to it, this is a great time to dedicate those resources. This is a great time to say, okay, let's take a look at our online presence. Let's beef it up. Let's see if we need to adjust our marketing message. As we've heard on some of the earlier calls, make sure your marketing message is not tone deaf. Make sure that you're not talking about, isn't it time to take that vacation? Have you thought about buying a boat? I mean, we've got to make sure that it's relevant to what's going on right now. We've got to think about, what do our listeners need to hear right now? And how can our message augment, how can it help that? So, think about your marketing message, increase your online presence, and look for other channels. So if we're getting out of one place, and I've seen this with another manufacturer who is, getting their material out of China solely, and he'd considered getting, and again, this is just one example. He was getting out of one warehouse in one town, and there was a challenge in supply. It's always good to have a backup, and you need to establish those relationships before you need those relationships. That's true with suppliers and everybody else. Always have a backup. If all your eggs are in one basket, and again, this isn't a criticism, this is a good time for us to reflect. We've all been there where we've got one cow that's given us all the milk. But then if that cow leaves, we're in a lot of trouble. And the time to go find your other cow is not when that cow stops giving you milk. It's before then. It's just establish these relationships. And so Rach has done a great job. She's got 3 different places that she's getting her material from. So that's no doubt served her well. But think about having multiple suppliers for your products. Think about really ramping up your online presence right now, and think about adjusting your marketing message. So I feel like the Wi-Fi is still down for poor Rach, who's calling us. I think it's 3 a.m. her time in New Zealand. So we're going to hop off. Hopefully Rach will join us here again shortly. And if not, we'll definitely get some highlights and we'll share them afterwards. If you have questions specifically for Rach Negus, again, owner of Eco, we'll put the link in there. It's an amazing women's clothing line and accessories. She's actually sent me some stuff, which was quite a shipment all the way to the US, and I really appreciated that. If you have specific questions for Rach, or even just comments, share. And whether that's, hey, how are you handling your supplier channels? How do you handle communication? You're doing business in Thailand. Again, they can be as expansive questions, or it can be real basic questions of, hey, you're doing business in Thailand and Bali and Italy. How do you communicate? She mentioned WhatsApp. That's a platform that's used by many, especially overseas. It's really, really commonly used for chatting, for videos, for voice messages, things like that. Many people use things like Slack, Hangouts. There's all different tools. But if it's a basic question, like how do you communicate? How do you manage the time difference, which is something we bump into a lot with Pivotme, is that we do business all over the world. And just let me say, time zones change. People observe daylight saving times at different times. This caught us a few times. So we'd have a call that was 6 or 7 countries dialing in, and the US would change on one time. And then even US territories, Puerto Rico changes at a different time. And then the UK would observe it another time, and then New Zealand observes it at another time. So we could never keep our call at a consistent time. People always had to adjust it throughout the year. So it's a simple thing, but if you're thinking about taking your business global, or you're just trying to manage the hardships of that, and you've got questions for Rach, please drop them in the comments or DM us, and we're happy to share it. We wish Rach well. Again, we'll try to give a summary of the conversation afterwards, and maybe we can capture it on video so we can share it here. As is the case with all the Pivotme lives, they eventually go to live on our website. So pivot-me.com, we'll also drop that in there too, is our website. It has everything from our podcast links, all the podcasts that we do. We've got a blog section in there, but relevant to this, we've got, I think it's it's in interviews-COVID-19, I believe it is, but we'll drop the link so you can just click it, where we're actually featuring all of these interviews. We're talking through these things. We'll eventually drop in some highlights in there, but these are manufacturers, these are distributors, these are service businesses that are being very honest. I mean, they're coming on in the middle of the night with their headphones and their hoodies. That wasn't Rach, but someone else was. We just got Rach back. Rach, you're back. Do we see ya? We got Rach back. All right. For our last 10 minutes or so, we got Rach. I was just saying that you had mentioned the internet had been a bit spotty lately. So real glad we got you back.
Another hurdle. We are on rural broadband, which everybody else in New Zealand is pretty much on unlimited data. And because we've been working from home, we've chewed through the internet, and so I just had to do a top up. Sorry.
Oh yes.
Connected because that's lasted one day, so it was 20 New Zealand dollars, which is about 10 US, I think. But,
and it lasted one day. That's a good point. So we've seen kind of a strain on our. Several people in the US and the UK have mentioned that they've seen a strain on their broadband. You've absolutely felt the strain on your broadband.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ooh, okay. That's not a good time to struggle with connectivity, right?
No, and we don't really have very good phone service here either. So if we haven't got the internet, it's quite funny because we can't actually ring our provider because we've got no phone service. And if the internet runs out, we're got nothing.
You're running a business at the same time.
Yeah.
So maybe what we should be talking about is how you manage your stress level, Rach. Maybe that's what really we need to know.
I bought, before we went into lockdown, they gave us 2 days notice that we were going into lockdown. So I raced around and bought a whole lot of plants. So I'm happy. I'm like a pig in mud, really. So I go outside and just dig holes and plant plants. And
that's awesome.
My seedlings, and it's good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I do remember you living on a beautiful piece of land, and sometimes in the morning you'd show us the back. We'd get a quick sneak peek of Rachel's backyard is stunning. And for those of us who live in the desert, we just salivate at that. So, it's amazing. So how are you? Okay, again, just being practical, because again, you guys have been shut down in such a way. One thing I was talking about when you went offline is this just highlights how all of us need to reflect a little bit about our diversification, both with our partners. So having multiple partners. So we've got, let me give context to that. So we've got, that just got weird. Don't turn that into a soundbite, people. So we've got Italy, we've got Bali, we've got Thailand, we've got places in each one of these. So it really highlights the importance of having multiple channels, right? So if you only have one supplier, the time to build that relationship is before you need it. And so one thing this conversation is really highlighting, and a few other conversations, is the need for having multiple suppliers that you can lean on, because that there can be economic downturns, there can be constraints in the local economy. So it really highlights the need for multiple suppliers, but it also highlights the need for, if you have a brick and mortar business, also to have an online retail business, because I would imagine if you had no online retail business, this would be an extremely tough time if you had no online presence.
Absolutely. My mum and dad they always taught me when I was growing up, you don't put all your eggs in one basket. I feel like all mine were in one basket. but no, the reality is, and I remember talking to the insurance agent, because we've got 4 stores, 3 of them are in Northland and one's in the Bay of Plenty. And I remember talking about insurance, thinking, oh no, if something happens, only one store would be shut, so that that shop could lean on the other shops in the meantime. But who would ever have thought that for at least 4 weeks that the whole of a country would shut down? And it's just something nobody plans for. It is important. I totally agree with you that you build relationships with people, and And I'm quite fortunate that I have got contacts that I'm working with. So, and it's linking through to those right people.
Yeah.
I sent just a email about my story out to a whole lot of random people in my inbox, whatever, in my email the other day, thinking, well, somebody might connect me. But, I'll just tell my story and ask, and they all probably read it and thought, goodness, why is she sending me this? But, hopefully.
Unless it's the one person that says, I know someone who can help.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's a really good point you just brought up, Rach, is that a lot of people are saying we want to support business. We want to support small businesses. And when I say small business, depends on where you are. That can be just sub $50 million. That can be sub 10 million in revenue. But people are saying, hey, I want to support the small businesses, but they don't always know how. So sometimes, and I just want to clarify this point, sometimes that's not necessarily just buy our stuff, which helps buy their stuff. But sometimes it looks like, give me a contact. This is who I really need. I need someone in this industry. I need someone in this country. I need someone with this network. So for those who are listening, and we've got a few, and I'm going to call them out because luckily we were able to see some of the comments. So I want to say thanks to Megan and Christina. We've got Debbie and Kat and Dawn and Justin and Mike and another Mike Forrester and Mike Zur. Thank you guys so much for dialing in. By all means, if you have questions for us or for Rach, you can either put them in the comments or send us a private message. Whenever I do that, I always get a little off topic, Rach. Kind of lost my point. Yeah, it's the oh yeah, got it. I'm back and we're back. So this is the thing about live, like there's no outtakes, which I actually have a funny story about outtakes. My dear podcast manager made an outtake of all the podcasts and all the times that I messed up what I was saying. And it's, I'd love to share it, but it's very colorful. And I never realized how much I messed up what I was saying. So he said it to me. He's like, it's great. I love you, Ben. I'm going to have to share it at some point because it's hilarious. But back to the original point, if you're looking for ways to support small businesses, ask them. I mean, most of us know, some of us work with many of them, but a small business owner. Ask them, how do I support you right now? Maybe it's buying their product. Maybe it's, I really need to contact. There's a small business owner locally who one runs a barber shop. The other one is a massage therapist, and they really needed help, and they kind of made a plea, and someone helped get them on the news. So that's what it looked like to support those two people, is let's give them a platform for them to share their message and explain. For them, it was the challenges that we're facing with business owners. The plan is for there to be support for business owners, and there's some channels that have been opened up, but to date, they have not been wildly successful. We'll say that. Have you guys rolled out in New Zealand? Have you guys seen support for businesses in this time? Is it kind of in a planning stage? Do you have any relief on the way?
Oh yeah, we've our Prime Minister's done an amazing job, to be fair, and she rolled out very early, even before we went into shutdown. She rolled out a package for small business, a wage subsidy, which is 80% of the minimum wage, so it doesn't cover wages for most people, but it's a significant help. And she opened, when we went into lockdown, she opened that up to big businesses as well.
Wow.
So, and it's a 12-week program, and it was paid out in a lump sum.
Wait, you guys already received the money?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
there was a collective, like American and British gasp when you said that. Okay. Yeah. That's amazing. I'm really glad to hear that.
It's incredible. And I think like the aim is that they don't want to see all of us businesses just go under. They just, the government's fully aware you've got zero revenue for 4 weeks. And it's not just 4 weeks. When we go back, let's face it, nobody's going to want to come in and go shopping and try on clothes that somebody else that may have had COVID has just tried on before them. So like we're in the process now of working through that as to what it's going to look like if and when we can open, and because we've got 4 different stages. But yeah, the government's been very supportive. They've even gotten tax relief, but not so much that, just a delay of tax, essentially writing off interest. And the banks have all been very supportive. The banks are essential services, so they are actually open for us to apply for loans, and the government will, I haven't looked into it too much, but there's a subsidy for the government will back at 80%, I think, if you get a loan. They're short-term loans, but
Sure.
everything helps. And
yeah,
there's mortgage repayment. You can delay that as well. And
wow.
so there is a lot going on in the background. She's been amazing. We're very blessed to have her leading our country at the moment. We really are.
Yeah, I got to tell you, though I have not spoke to every person from New Zealand, that has been the overarching message from everybody that I speak to is we're so grateful to have her as our leader right now.
Yeah.
Good for you. I'm really glad to hear that, because as you know, not every country is experiencing that. And there's definitely some hurdles, and the payouts, there's either been delayed or a lot of people have been denied. There was in the US, there was a self-employed unemployment insurance. Anyways, there's some channels have been opened up, and there's either been delays or just flat out denies. And it's definitely put some people under some real strain. So I'm really glad to hear that they were really proactive in New Zealand about this and say, hey, there's not going to be revenue for at least 4 weeks. Let's address this. What does that look like for your staff? So does it roll down to staff? Are they furloughed, or I don't know if you have another name for it, but are they laid off? What happens with staff?
So, it is a wage subsidy, so the intention is to keep the employee attached to the employer. So it's not that you receive the money now hand it over to the staff. They want you to keep them attached to you, and another condition is that you keep them employed for 12 weeks.
Sure.
Best as you've got to at least try to keep them employed for 12 weeks.
Sure.
So for my staff, we're just paying them their ordinary pay, but you can actually pay them 80% of up to at least 80% of their wages.
But you've chosen to pay them more than 80?
We pay them their ordinary pay.
Wow.
There's swings and roundabouts there, but when we went into lockdown, I sent an email to all of my staff and talked to them. I just wanted to be open, and because they cannot work, and some people are working from home, but because they obviously physically can't go to work, I asked them if they would take a couple of weeks annual leave, and the other 2 weeks they'd be paid as if they were just going to work normally. And all of my staff have pretty much agreed to that. The general response was, we'll do whatever it takes, Rach, to make sure the business survives.
Oh, Rach.
There's been lots of tears, but
wow.
It's great to know that you've got the right people on your team when you hear that sort of stuff. So it is beautiful. And so we're doing everything we can to make sure that the business, that not only the business survives, but the jobs are there for them at the end of all of this.
That is amazing, and that speaks to the caliber of people that you've hired, but also the quality of leadership you've provided, Rach. That's amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah. Wow. That is great. So for the people that are, you said there's a couple of people that were trying to work from home, or you and another person. What did you have to make arrangements for that? Did they have, everything from, you've got internet challenge, you got connectivity challenges. What does that look like? Do you guys communicate through WhatsApp, Slack, both from how do you guys communicate, and then what arrangements were made to do it effectively?
Mainly through Messenger and email, and it's not a huge amount of work for other people. I'm busy. I'm just constantly I'm just working through sourcing product every day. And it's like, I don't think I'd get bored of that, but no, it's not easy. And we've just before the shutdown, we've done a photo shoot. So somebody's in the background trying to upload all those photos to the website. But because you've got 4 weeks to do it, productivity is
sure is
a priority. It's not. She can just take her time to do it, and it will get done. But especially because nobody can buy it.
Yeah. I wonder if so we've heard that a lot about, we have a lot of time to do it, and we're actually going to do a feature on that, because the reason why that's happening, people are like, man, I've got this big to-do list, but I know I've got all this time to do it, and so it doesn't get done. And what's at play there is a thing called Parkinson's law, which work expands for the time that we've allotted to it. And we've got much bigger time allotments now, right? So I've got 4 weeks to upload those photos, and they'll probably get uploaded somewhere around the 3.5 week mark, right? So if we don't put, like, even an artificial timeline can be such an effective tool to actually get those things done quicker. But man, I would imagine it's tough that you can't actually sell, but I would imagine you could do some kind of launch or build some kind of hype around what you're doing. And also something I want to share. So we interviewed Armando, the president of Creative Works, a couple days ago, and he made this comment. I think it's really relevant here. He said, going forward, here's some of the changes we're going to see. He said, make cleanliness part of the show. And so, to your point, who's going to want to come in and try an outfit when maybe someone with COVID-19 had it? So I think it made us all, especially people that have like a tangible product that they're providing to their customers. How are we going to make cleanliness part of the show? So in his instance, it was for the restaurant industry. Like, the busser's not going to just walk around and quickly clean off a table. You're going to go, no, make sure you sterilize that before I sit my family down. And so that it would probably be a real good time to think about, how can I make cleanliness part of the show? How can I ease the concerns of my customers that we have followed stringent guidelines, that we've done some kind of cleaning process? That's something for all of us that have a tangible product to consider. What does that look like? How do we ease the concern? And not just, I want to be clear. I'm not saying make a show of it and not really address the issue. It is a very real issue. How do we follow some kind of standard so that we mitigate the risk to our customers, and also that we can't just mitigate it, we have to communicate how we mitigated it so that their concerns are eased. I would imagine that's definitely going to be applicable with clothing.
It is. We've got quite a good retail association in New Zealand, and they asked yesterday, were we thinking about stage 3, and did we have any questions that they thought that we should put forward to the government? And so I sent the questions around that and said that I thought that we needed some direction on what happens with clothing if somebody tries it on. Like, does it stay on clothing? I mean, there's a lot on the internet about that, but I don't know which ones are true and which ones aren't. So
sure,
we need some definite research behind that as to whether it stays on clothing. And then, do we just, and the different stages that New Zealand's going to go through to open back up, is there like stage 3? Do we say, sorry, you can't try it on? And then stage 2, is it that we quarantine the clothes? You can try it on, but then we'll have to take that off the floor for the next 24, 48 hours while any bugs die.
Yeah.
And then obviously cleaning's a big one. And I don't know whether you're doing this in the US, but we have to keep a register of who, I'm pretty sure we'll have to keep a register of who comes into the store and probably then who tries it on, so that tracing can be done. So if somebody gets it from our shop, then we can go back to all those customers and say, you need to be tested.
Wow. That's amazing that that's being tracked at that level. Though a logistics nightmare for the business owner, what a socially responsible thing to do. Wow. Okay.
Restaurants were doing that before we shut down. You had to sign in if you wanted to buy, even if a takeaway coffee, you had to sign in, give you a phone number. Wow.
That is amazing. I feel like that would not go over well in the US. Yeah, I know it wouldn't. I'm not saying I disagree with it at all. It's very important that we track this and we control this as best possible. But anyways, I have thoughts on that, but we'll leave that for another call. So yeah, that's great. That's fantastic, because then you can really, and I haven't looked at the numbers in New Zealand to see how much you guys are affected. It sounds like you guys have been pretty, had a pretty strong response.
Yeah, we have. And like, I think we were 1,200 cases. So we have got very little. And the at the beginning of the shutdown, some scientists, I don't know, some professional man predicted that we would have in excess of 10,000 cases if we hadn't shut down. So it's definitely working. What we've done has definitely worked.
Wow. Good for you guys. Oh, that's fantastic. I know it's so very hard. We're focused on our businesses. We're focused on our family. We're focused on our staff. But there is a larger thing at play here. There's a bigger picture, bigger than my business, bigger than your business. And it sounds like you guys have had a pretty strong response, and it served you well. So what opportunities are you seeing right now? And just to give you some context, some of the things that we've heard is kind of like what we touched on before, well, we're really going to lean into our online presence and really beef up our social media, or this is an opportunity for us to diversify. We were thinking about going into this other product line. Well, heck, this is the time. Or maybe it's, you probably do this as your history of a CFO anyhow, but some people are like, well, it's time to finally do that financial modeling we've never had time for, or get into our CRM or our inventory management system. What opportunities are you seeing right now as a business owner?
Wow. I assume you remember my little challenge that I would like to make environmentally friendly clothing. And so the opportunity, it's something I'm so passionate about, slow fashion, and coming from an environmental perspective. And I truly think that after this, it'll be so much easier to introduce it to people. People will be so much more open to everything that's natural. And I think so. There is a massive opportunity there, and I'm still facing the same hurdles with that. That it's the quantities and it's the ability to do it. So yeah, just working through that. So instead of Italy, hopefully I still get Italy, but that's my opportunity, is to jump off the deep end and just go right.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if there's any other way to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It seems like the world will be ready for that. I remember us talking about that in the past, and that is something that you're incredibly passionate about. And it does seem like the world will be more primed for that kind of initiative.
Yeah, I do. I honestly think they will be.
Yeah. Okay. So, as far as how you're showing up for your staff, are you interacting with your staff differently? If they're, most of them aren't working, do you still interact with them? Do you still have, and we've seen everything from some companies that are still relatively working, but remotely, are doing 9 a.m. huddles still. Some are just having coffee breaks. So they're still touching base. Another one was saying, hey, I sent out a form and just say, how are you doing? How's your family? How's your kids? Like, just understanding where people are right now. Are you doing that? How are you connecting with your staff? And are you intentional about how you're showing up as a leader right now?
Right. So we have a Facebook group that our staff, they're called the Ecovians, which I thought was a beautiful name for them. Somebody kindly gave us that name. I feel like I struggled through the first week. I didn't sleep very well. I was, real moments sort of thing, and was trying to implement the 2-week leave, 2-week paid sort of scenario, worrying about all of that in the background. And yeah, I do think that as a leader, I probably didn't touch base with. I've only put a post up a couple of days ago about what I was doing at home, not so much about work, but showed them that I barked one of my gardens, and and challenged them to put up some stuff about what they were doing as well. So no, not really staying in contact too much. I had one lady ring me yesterday, and we had a nice long chat, which was really lovely, because I didn't realize I had so many staff, and so I can't afford to talk to them all each day individually. But and I've talked to some of them individually, but probably talked to all of them at least once, but on the phone. But mainly through the Facebook group, and that hasn't. I probably should ramp that up now. I should probably start.
Yeah. That's one thing that's come up on a lot of the calls, is just communicate frequently. That seems to really serve people well, because not just our customers are listening too. And that was one thing that had come up on a few earlier calls that were not Pivotme Live, just client calls. They're saying, I'm not sure what to communicate. And sometimes it's as simple as just say, hey, we're still here. We're going to get through this. We're sticking this out together. We're going to be doing business again together. And whether it's our staff, same thing. We're here. We're going to make it through this. Thanks for standing by our side. We're going to stand by your side. But just continuing that relationship and continuing that communication. It seems like it's really served people well. For people that have really big staff, people that have 60 or 70 or 100 plus people, it might look like, okay, I put out an audio message or a video message. And to your point, you got a Facebook group, putting it out, just saying, hey, here's what we're doing. Things are moving ahead. We're going to make it through this, but just, easing their concerns, making sure that they know, hey, you still got a job. We're still here. We're going to rise through this. That has come up on a few calls. Talk to us about, is there two parts? So either resources that you're using that are helping you through this time. So we've talked about some like software stuff, WhatsApp and different ways that you're communicating. Is there a resource that you guys are using, or is there a habit that you're doing that's serving you well during this time? And the habit can be, I'm journaling, I'm meditating, you said gardening right now.
Yeah.
Like, what's serving you right now?
I did start off journaling. I thought, this would be interesting. Keep this for a later date. But it did fall off. It did fall off the to the wayside there. But I guess my habit is just showing up as though I was at work. Each day making sure that I put time into the business and not just spend it all out in the garden. But I've actually a bit disappointed with the amount of time I've been in the garden, because I've been working so hard trying, because if I don't keep showing up, then it's just not gonna, I do think we'll be in deep trouble.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Not a very good habit. You didn't teach me.
I know. What? All our time together, Rach. Come on.
Are you disappointed?
No. You know what? I'll give you the pandemic slide. It's okay. So no, and it's so good to be reminded of those habits. And sometimes just a conversation like this is enough to go, what habit served me? One of the conversations that I had with Armando was, he said he's made sure that he's still reaching for habits or things that decompress him. So he found a couple things that decompress him. And I think that's very important for us to find. And so maybe it's gardening, and I delineate between decompressing and distraction, because many of us are reaching for things that distract us. And that usually looks like social media, scrolling. That usually looks like Netflix or Hulu, or choose your your TV viewing options. But those things tend to, and there's nothing wrong with that, but those things tend to distract us, but don't necessarily decompress us. And how do we know the difference? Is how do we feel afterwards? My guess is gardening decompresses you. So we want to make sure that we schedule that in so that there's some decompression, because, you've got a heavy load right now, Rach. You've got, I don't need to say that, that, you feel it. Many do. And it's so important that we make sure, it's a bit overused, but that we're putting our oxygen mask on first, right? Because we're out there pouring into other people's cup, whether that's employee or our family, our business, trying to keep things moving. We need to keep the business moving, keep the economic engine running. But we've just got to make sure that we've got our mask on first, right? So we've got a garden, Rach. We've got a garden. So is there any habits or things that you're staying away from right now? So what's come up on a few of the calls is, I'm really limiting the amount of news that I'll watch at this time, or I'm limiting the amount of, I'll only let myself watch this much TV shows at night, or things like that. Is there anything that your habits that you're staying away from, or things that you're avoiding during this time?
No. No, I don't think I'm limiting. Life's pretty boring at the moment as far as what there is to do. So there's not much to limit. Not limiting the wine, just a couple of glasses a night. There you go.
There's your limit. Just two.
Limit.
Just two a night. Perfect. Well, going through this, just sort of wrapping up and in closing, so everyone's facing a challenge. Some are really, really big, and some are smaller, but there's challenges for everyone. And that's one really unifying thing about COVID-19 is it's touched everybody. So some people it's lightly touched, some people it's just punched them in the face, right? But everybody's been touched by this. Do you have either words of encouragement or a piece of advice that you would share with business owners for this time?
New Zealand has got a motto at the moment, And I forgot. But, that we're in this together. And, like I think, because it's very easy to self-sabotage at a time like this, like, oh, woe with me, like the world is coming to an end, the sky
Sure.
is falling. And I do think that we're all on this together. And it's, like having made friends all across the world now, it's incredible that it's not just New Zealand shut, India shut, parts of America, everybody is facing the same story, same stuff. And just to stay strong and to be optimistic, and that there is another side to this, and it's going to be even more amazing than what it already was.
Yeah.
It really is. And I think, just keep it from the heart. And at the end of the day, if we don't have a business at the end of this, we still have our health. There's money's just a thing, but to have each other is, I don't know, the most important thing in the world.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely, for many people, reminded them of what's important, right? We come back to, well, all these other things I thought were important, and maybe it's around just actually a much smaller circle than I thought it was. That's a good reminder.
Yeah, it's interesting how the world is just like gone.
Yeah, right.
Especially when you're in New Zealand, because there's not, like it's such a small country, and everything comes in from overseas. It's like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen after this? It's quite
thinking that, because that's not a very big. You're North Island, right?
North Island, yeah.
So that's not a very big area. I mean, again, I'm talking to someone from the US, which it's a big, giant country. I mean, probably Ben, who's listening in the UK, is like, actually, it's pretty big. But relative, it's not much. It's not much size-wise. And you do get so much material from overseas. And I'm sure that's all come to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
There's got to be some inherent challenges there.
It's going to be interesting times.
Yeah. It sounds like you've got the right mindset to navigate it, though.
Australia, it was on the news last night that Australia, I think, is running short of rice.
Of rice? Of what?
Rice.
Oh, rice.
R-I-C-E, rice, yeah. And I was like, well, that's interesting. What happens if, like if we can never buy food like that from overseas, because we wouldn't be able to grow rice in New Zealand. It's like,
sure.
Ooh, this could change things how, like even the food we eat, like we may not end up with. It's interesting. It's like who knows what's going to happen in the future.
One thing, this is kind of in a different direction, but just kind of a unique perspective that I think about is, no, I'm not going to measure my words. I was going to measure my words, but I'm not. So having traveled a lot, so, I've traveled a ton throughout the world. And one thing, and I'm going to give the international traveler perspective and the American perspective, is having traveled a lot. The one thing, and lots of other countries are like this, but Americans really take for granted the ridiculous convenience that we have. And I'm making a very general statement. It's so convenient. We have everything at our fingertips, and food and the drive-thrus, and walk into the store. There's not two kinds of yogurt. Like most countries do not have 100 different kinds of yogurt and milk and crackers and chips and all that stuff. We just have so much convenience. And the one thing, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's something we take for granted. Many people do. And I thought about this. I was having this conversation the other day, that I think one of the things that's going to come out of it is people have an appreciation for all the things that we have. So things have changed, right? Things have restricted. You can't, if you have flu-like symptoms, many people can't just go to the regular doctor or can't go to urgent care. Some of them are still open, but they're restricted on where they can go. They can't just go to the store and get their favorite brand of toilet paper or milk or this or that. My sister went to the grocery store yesterday, and she's kind enough to go for us. And I'm doing screenshots. I'm doing images of the stuff that we buy. And I'm like, of course, any brand will work. Like, I love the grass-fed organic beef, but you get whatever they have, right? And I think that that's one of the things that's also going to come out of this. And this isn't necessarily just specific to Americans, but a real appreciation for things that we took for granted. That's a gift that we can get out of this if we choose to. If we reach for that, we can just forget that this ever happened. But if we choose to, we can get a whole lot of gratitude out of this and a real appreciation for the amount of convenience. Like to your point, we get rice. We don't grow rice. How are we getting rice? You know, New Zealand doesn't grow rice, and yet it was always on the shores or on the shelves. And an appreciation like, I really do like jasmine rice and I can't grow it. I appreciate that's back, you know?
Yeah.
The gift that we can get out of this time.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you have woke up in the middle of the night to talk to us. You have overcome sleep deprivation, a stressful time, and broadband issues, and I believe upgraded your broadband account real time live, Rach. Let me ask you this. How do we support you during this time? How do we show up for you? How do we support you or your business? What can we do?
I'm going to pull the thing out.
She's building the anticipation. It's going to be good. We can't hear you. Oh, there you're back. You're back. Okay.
I can't see. Sorry, I can't find the hole to put my plug back in.
It's dark.
I can need my glasses. I think the biggest way that anybody could support me would be those contacts for where we could source from, whether it be from Italy or from India or from, anywhere. And particularly on a level of environmentally friendly fabrics and the natural fibers. And that would be the biggest support anybody could give me. And just send love over the airwaves. Like it's, big on that. Very big on that.
I think we can do that. I think whether that's Babaji Day in Italy with Makers Valley, whether that is Pratik and Sonali and their connects in India, heck, our bookkeeper is out of a major city in India as well, has lots of connects. We're going to find someone. So we heard the plea. We heard what we need to do, guys. Let's connect Rach. Rach is a wonderful person who is environmentally conscious and also really focused on elevating people both in her shops and abroad through her business. She uses her business not just a revenue tool. Oh no, she's got a much, much bigger why, which she shared right away. So she didn't start this conversation with, well, we're looking to double our revenue. That's not what she started it with. She started it with, this is why I run this business. And I think that really demonstrates where Rach operates from, and she operates from her heart. And so I feel honored to know her, and it's been so amazing working with you. And thank you for taking this time to chat with us today.
Oh, thank you, April. It's been awesome. It's been fantastic. It was worth getting up for.
Great. Thank you.